So in yesterday's episode, my guest, Mr. Billy Dominguez, shared how his team remained the number one team in Lancaster New City even during the pandemic. They continued to make sales because their team of master salespreneurs were able to adapt to the changing market needs. They even came up with a marketing message that was so brilliant, it made a potential home buyer actually panic to buy a property instead of waiting and doing nothing. So, this really highlights the need for a great team leader, a great mentor. And if you have one by your side, you can find solutions to your problems together with your mentor. Now, my guest for tonight is my real estate mentor. He got me started in real estate many, many years ago. And he was also credited as the same mentor behind their success, instrumental in their real estate careers. To my previous guests, Rap Santos, Rick Manzano, Eden Dayrit, and just the other day, Clem Dizon. He's the best-selling author of Think Rich Pinoy and one of the broker owners of Remax Capital Alabang. So let's learn from my guest tonight and my dear mentor, Dr. Larry Gamboa. Hi,
Thank
sir.
you. Hello, Ronald. How are you?
Yes. Very good, sir. Great to see you.
Same here, Ronald.
All
Back
right.
on the screen. Back on the screen.
Yes, yes. Still going strong. So I really admire you, sir. You're still going strong, mentoring, educating people in financial education, real estate investing. Sir, what drives you, to do this after so many years in business and investing?
What drives me?
Yes, sir. What drives
I
you to
guess
continue? Yeah.
I guess it's what drove me to many years ago join the LaSalle brothers when I was still in college, second year college. I stopped my college to join the LaSalle brothers. And the motive then was because I was so dazzled, impressed by the mission of education, educating the young Filipino to be to become the best that they are possible that they can become. No, so that's what introduced me to teaching, the classroom, to training, and to learning what this whole ball game is. How to understand the world through education. That's what drives me even then, and it drives me now, Ronald. So now I try to learn it through the internet because nga wala naman akong formal training in the internet. I'm
Yes.
just a liberal arts education graduate, but I got a master's degree in sociology later on from the University of the Philippines, your alma mater,
Yes.
and that's where I got introduced to research.
Mhm.
And from the University of the Philippines, I learned more about research and education through Philippine Normal College.
Mhm.
I met wonderful people like Dr. Henry Finstra from Canada, from Western Ontario, Canada. I
Yes.
met Russ Allen, a Harvard Business School graduate who found himself assigned to the Philippines with the Ford Foundation. I met people like Dr. Victor Ordonez, who I proudly recruited to Philippine Normal College, but Vic was much bigger than Philippine Normal. He ended up becoming Undersecretary of Education under Doctora Kisumbing when she became Secretary of Education.
Uh-huh.
So yun yung pathway to learning, to education, and to training. That's where I learned how to teach grade five in the classroom, and then
Wow.
later on in high school, second year college, where I got my chops in terms of handling student activists who were
Uh-huh.
not interested in being taught in the classroom.
Mhm.
So I lost my cool. And even if I was a LaSalle brother in training, I must confess I ended up losing my cool and slugging a kid. And that kid brought me to court.
All right.
So I had to find a lawyer, and the lawyers then were only Pepe Diokno, who was busy
Wow.
with LaSalle activism,
Mhm.
and then Voltaire Garcia, who was
Mhm.
the student activist in UP at that
All right.
time, and
Yeah.
both of them were too busy to represent me.
Uh-huh.
So I ended up finding a lawyer called Luis Feria, attorney Luis Feria.
Mhm.
He agreed to defend me, and as a LaSalle brother, I went to court. I had to swear on the Bible to swear to tell the truth about the incident. And then when the judge asked me, how do I plead to this charge of slugging a kid, I
Mhm.
said, I plead guilty, Your Honor. And then the judge looked at me and said, okay, you heard his plea. So now I rule case dismissed. He threw the case out of the court. Ang galit nung batang ano that I slugged, no?
Yes,
They
yes.
were so angry, etc. But what can they do? The judge made a ruling. They have to bring it up to a higher court.
Uh-huh.
So I ended up uh, getting judged in court. But when I went back to the school, LaSalle Green Hills, my class put me to trial. The
Okay.
question is, are we going to accept Brother Victor back to the classroom or not?
Uh-huh.
So they had pros and con debate. Who wants to accept me back and who wants to not accept me back? And they spent hours giving the reasons plus and minus about accepting or rejecting me.
Mhm.
Finally, after several days of listening to the testimony and cross testimony, and they had a courtroom
Uh-huh.
in class on me. They finally decided, okay, we will accept him back. I said, okay, but we have to have ground rules. From
Uh-huh.
here on in, we play by the rules. You do not go in and out of the classroom whenever you want. You do
Uh-huh.
not just talk whenever you want. You do not push your teacher around like you did with me. So we had to negotiate the ground rules. But I tell you, once we negotiated the ground rules, this was the finest second year history of Southeast Asia class that I ever handled. It's the only one, but the students were brilliant.
Uh-huh.
One student in particular, his name was Jerry Ablaza. I did
Mhm.
not realize he would become a star CEO for different companies like uh, may meat company si San Miguel eh. Pagkatapos he joined Citibank and became very high profile in Citibank. And then finally he got hired by Ayala and he
Right.
became the head of Globe. He turned it around and made it very very profitable for
Amazing.
Ayala. So that's the story of Jerry Ablasa. So when you meet him, you ask him about this brother Victor who slugged the student, of which he was a member of the class. But he did so well in his History of Southeast Asia paper. When he defended it in front of the class, they all had to present their class. I think his country was Malaysia. He did a superb presentation on Malaysia, the geography, the geopolitics, the history. why Malaysia is so critical in relation to Southeast Asia. So that's a long answer to your simple question, Ronald. How did I get involved in education and training and coaching,
Yeah.
even when we're still in pandemic,
Yeah.
and even when I'm just trying to pass my time since I'm recovering from surgery, uh, just watching Netflix movies.
Netflix.
Oh, In the Line of Fire, the latest one. The guy acting there is Clint Eastwood in
Yes,
the
yes.
Line of Fire. So, but I had to stop it because I have this interview with you. So,
Well,
yun
thank
ang
you, sir.
yun ang background, Ronald.
Thank you for taking a break, from your Netflix time. It's just
I,
interesting that you, I, well, I knew that you were an educator, but I didn't know that this is the first time that I'm hearing these stories. So, how
mm,
did that experience, impact you, like later in life, later in your like training careers? What
it
did you
cha-
learn from that?
it it changed me totally, Ronald, because of that joining the LaSalle brothers and then having to make a very, very sad decision after 4 years. I decided to quit the LaSalle brothers.
Mhm.
And but I still love education, so I joined uh, Philippine Normal College,
Mhm.
headed by Dr. Bonifacio Sibayan, the legendary linguist, no,
Mhm.
friend of brother Andrew Gonzalez, no. So that stint in Philippine Normal College, I met Dr. Henry Finstra, and he made me teach statistics of all subjects. Yung pinakaayaw ko, sabi niya, yan ang tuturuin mo sa mga estudyante. But
Mhm.
may sikreto siya. I will teach the course and you will teach beside me. So,
Mm.
siya yung gumagawa ng lesson plan. He will explain it to me. And then he says, now let's see how well you learn it. You go into the class and you teach it. So talagang show and tell style. And then bibigyan niya ako ng feedback. Tapos kung may tanong ako, tira ulit. Let's see how well you can improve. Talagang one of the nicest coaching experiences I ever had. To learn to teach statistics to college students in Philippine Normal College. And of course, these were women college students, no?
Mhm.
Because Dr. Sibayan said, Larry, I have to be frank with you. We have three kinds of men here. We have men, men, and men. But mostly they are men. So maraming bakla at that point.
Mhm.
Pero you cannot choose. You have to teach whoever is in front of you. But I tell you, these women, they are the hardest working and most brilliant researchers I ever came across. And many of them went on for master's and PhD degrees abroad. That's how good they were in child study. That was
Okay.
their field. So now, why was that very significant? Because Ronald, it is that experience in Philippine Normal College. I somehow not only learned to publish, not only got a master's degree in UP,
Mhm.
I met all of these wonderful professor like Dr. Finstra, and I met Dr. He became Secretary of Education. Anong pangalan niya? Si Dr. He was head of the psychology department sa UP. He was doing research on student activism. Abraham Felipe. Yun yung
Okay.
pangalan niya. So I became the research assistant of Abraham Felipe in UP. While I was a student, I was a LaSalle Brothers student in UP. And because of those intersection, I applied for a Fulbright grant and I got accepted on a Fulbright scholarship to study abroad.
Mhm.
So people will pay me to study. And for someone like me, a bookworm, it was like sending me to heaven.
Yeah.
That was my first taste of heaven while on earth. Na they began to pay me my rent. They began to pay me research, to put me to school in University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
Yes.
And on the way there, I got convinced by my friend Russ Allen, the guy from Harvard. He said, Larry, you've been studying education all your life. Why don't you shift to something that can help out more broadly? Sabi ko, anong shift? What will I shift to? He said, why don't you get an MBA? Get a PhD in business. Sabi ko,
Mhm.
Ras, wala akong alam dyan. He said, all the better. You will be forced to learn because you know nothing. So that's how I shifted from education to business
For business.
and got my PhD in business at the University of Michigan. And that's where I met some wonderful Filipinos also, like
Mhm.
the former head of the Philippine Statistics, the Philippine Statistics Organization, the government, no? Nakalimutan ko na yung pangalan niya, but he was very, very sharp. He was a scholar, and then there was another guy, a Chinese. They became my co-roommates in Michigan. So I would join them. I would pitch in on our lunches, yung pera.
Mhm.
Pero ako, ang role ko is to wash dishes kasi wala akong alam sa luto. Si Stanley Lim at si Romy, I think it's Romy, they were the cooks. Ang
Okay.
galing magluto ng oxtail ni Stanley Lim. So I was able to eat with them and then have a certain what do you call that? Uh, Fellowship,
Bonding, camaraderie. Yes,
bonding.
yes.
Oh, kasi very lonely ang life doon. Tapos ang bayad ko lang, my share of the lunch, and I have to make sure I clean the dishes well. Wala
Mhm.
yung masyadong naiiwanan ng mga fats, na grease and all that. No?
Yeah.
So that's how I survived in Michigan through all the winters and the summers and the whatever. And it was a very joyful experience meeting Filipinos there, like Ruben Ruben Del Rosario, who is now the head of the Del Rosario Law Office in BGC.
Okay.
May building na sila ron. Si Ruben finished his MBA in Michigan. He was dating some beautiful white women and would be going out camping, enjoying life. All of a sudden, he left us. He was
Mhm.
called back home by his dad, and his dad uh, passed on the law business to him. So sabi niya, Dad, wala akong alam dito. Sabi ng tatay niya, di mag-aral ka, maging abogado ka. So he started from zero. He had to learn all about law to take over the maritime law firm of his dad, uh, Attorney Del Rosario.
Mhm.
Now it is the premier maritime law office in the country. All these groups like Shell and all of this maritime, they run to them for legal advice. The
Yeah.
Del Rosario and Del Rosario Law Office. So
Amazing that they became the leader, even if Ruben Del Rosario did not have uh, the prior legal education.
yeah,
So he had to learn
yes,
from scratch.
he learned from scratch, but what he did is he used his MBA to
Mhm.
organize the firm so
Okay.
that the lawyers became united he used his master's in business administration to teach them how to manage their law office.
Okay.
But the law side, he had to slowly earn his own spurs, and he did it the hard way. He went back to school. Ganong
Amazing.
kagaling na, si Ruben. He's really a smart kid. No?
Amazing.
We call him then and now. If you don't mind, we call him Boy Black kasi talagang black siya eh.
Mm-hmm.
Marami kaming Del Rosario, may Ramon Del Rosario, tapos siya si Ruben Del Rosario. Si Ramon maputi, si Ruben maitim. So si Ruben naging Boy Black sa
Okay.
class. Tapos nandun si Quisha. Siya si Albino.
Joe Fisher. Yes, sir.
Oo. Si naging siya. Ano doon? Central Bank
Ambassador.
Governor.
Central Bank Governor and Ambassador.
And Ambassador, no? So, up to now, magkasama kami. We got invited by another classmate, Ambassador Jose Laurel, to Japan. So, before the pandemic, our class, our small little group from Manila, flew to Japan, and we were hosted by Ambassador Laurel for at least 10 wonderful days. He toured us all over the place. Inside Tokyo, outside Tokyo, saan-saan nyo kami dinala. He was a wonderful host, and he was so important to the president's relationship with Japan. And he brought in so many, like the underground railway in Makati. That's all funded by the Japanese. And by the time he retires, when President Duterte ends his term, tapos nagumpisa na yung subway.
Yes.
But he doesn't think it will be finished. But he hopes
before he retires.
Before he retires. But yun ang contribution ni Ambassador Laurel. And ang niya, I'm amazed at the integrity of Ambassador Laurel, how he is able to continue to follow the straight and narrow course, no matter what kind of pressures, like they were trying to pressure him to sell the embassy in Tokyo so that they could use the money because it's worth a lot of money. It's located so well in Tokyo. They were going to pay a lot of money and gagamitin ng gobyerno to cover the money that was lost in PhilHealth. Sabi ni Ambassador, hindi yata tama yan. I mean, the Filipino people fought to get this property, and we really rightfully own the property. Why should it be sold for the stupidity of the government official who bankrupted our PhilHealth? And then the one that will suffer is the Filipino people and this wonderful property in Tokyo. So hindi natuloy. They were not able to take that property and sell it. And that's how Ambassador Laurel stood his ground and continues to represent us through these very challenging times. So yun, mahabang kwento.
Yeah, very interesting stories from your life, sir. So you've been like classmates with these big time business leaders and government leaders. I'm going to go back to that later, but I'm curious, sir, because earlier you mentioned that you had your PhD in Ann Arbor.
Yes,
now,
University of Michigan.
University of Michigan. Yeah. Now, how did you apply your PhD? What was your I guess business application after finishing your PhD?
No, it happened while I was studying. I had to look for a thesis topic. You
Mhm.
know, the big topic then was organization development and leadership, and the you know Peter Drucker was the big
Okay.
guru in organizations. He was writing all these big thick books about the tasks and responsibilities of managers. So I had to choose a topic, and my focus was on uh, B.F. Skinner, the Skinnerian approach, stimulus response to management. You stimulate and you get a response. You stimulate, you get a response, and you bring these two together. And I formed a hypothesis about absenteeism in organization.
Mhm.
How you can use behavior modification to decrease absenteeism. You have an experimental group and then a control group, and you find out how your control group stays the same, but the experimental group, you significantly decrease
Mhm.
absenteeism and therefore raise productivity. And
Yep.
you have to measure all of those variables in this experimental design, and then apply statistical analysis to test them for significance.
Mhm.
And of course, you must write it up and then publish it. So
Yes.
that thesis won me the highest award for that year in the American Psychological Association.
Wow.
Beyond Skinner with Dignity, an application of behavior modification in an industrial setting. So, yun yung final na talagang totohanan nito na natapos ko yung I am the fastest Filipino to ever finish his doctorate in business in Michigan at that time. So talagang God was
Amazing.
very good. God was really very kind. Uh, Hindi ako iniwanan all
Yes.
throughout
Yes.
that period, no.
Mhm.
And the experience was so maturing, and I had to grow up, Ronald. Before
Yes.
that, I was a spoiled brat, and wala. Puro everything was alam mo man, sa Pilipinas, no? Lagi kang sumasandal sa pamilya,
Mhm.
and I broke my ties with the family when I left for the LaSalle brothers.
Mhm.
But then when I left the LaSalle brothers, balik na naman sa pamilya. It's so easy to stay ano in the protective shell of the family.
Mhm.
Eh, salamat na lang, uh, I was able to get the scholarship to go abroad
Yes.
because my mother was a widow and we are six in the family. So akala ko she's going to have to educate all six of us. So sabi ko,
Mhm.
Mama, five na lang kasi ako, you don't have to worry about paying for my education. I was able to find a way na uh, babayaran nila ako while I study. So all
Mhm.
you have to do is pay for my brothers and sisters and until they finish college. No?
Yeah.
So yun yung parang tulong na lang na mabigay ko sa pamilya.
Mhm.
Kasi I felt disloyal na I was the oldest. And then
Yes.
ako pa yung umaalis na maging brother. And then later on, nag-aaral sa abroad, no? Ganon.
Yeah.
Eh, anyway, God was good. He made it work out well.
Right.
So that's how it all happened.
Okay. Well, how did that uh well, just going back, sir, dun sa to your experience as a, finishing your PhD, did that help you later on in your career? Like, how did you get into business? How did you get into real estate investing?
Okay. How did that PhD help me get into business? and more specifically into real estate investing.
Yes.
Well, kasi with the Fulbright scholarship, I signed a contract before being sent abroad. Now, when I finish, I have to return to the Philippines and serve my country. So they don't want you to stay in the US
Mhm.
indefinitely and become a US citizen kasi may PhD ka na dun sa Amerika. Ayaw mo nang umuwi, no?
Yes.
In fact, I have a very smart classmate. His name is Dr. Francisco Ramirez, Chiqui Ramirez.
Mhm.
He got his PhD in Stanford in sociology,
Okay.
and he became a full professor, tenured professor in the sociology department of Stanford up
Stanford.
to this, yeah, in Stanford up to this date. So when I visited him in Stanford, he said, Larry, look over there. That is the place where Steve Jobs delivered his famous talk
Mhm.
about, I have a dream. And then, anong
Connecting the
talk ni,
dots.
yes, connecting the dots. So he showed me all of those landmarks in Stanford na nandito si Condoleezza Rice, nandito si Steve Jobs, nandito si yung mga buildings ni Bill Gates, may mga buildings siya doon sa Stanford,
Mhm.
all funded by him, no? So these are really priceless experiences. So when I was in Michigan, I was already learning how to do training in the continuing education program of University of Michigan. I was already teaching business. I was already teaching uh, behavior modification in an industrial setting.
Okay.
Gumagawa na ako ng curriculum noon for business students to try to apply a lot of these organization development tools. Ang mga tinuturo ni Ed Shine, Chris Argyris, yun yung mga big authors nila, si Peter Drucker, uh, yung mga ideas nila, how do you apply it in a training program?
Mhm.
And I did it. I tried to do it in Ford World Headquarters. I got a job working in Detroit. I would
Mhm.
have to drive from Ann Arbor every week to Detroit and back during summer or winter because I had this research job for Ford headquarters doing research for them on assessment centers, no? So doon na ako na-introduce sa mga assessment center, sa mga trabaho ni Bill Byham, tapos yung partner ni Bill Byham sa Development Dimensions, doon ko nakilala and that's how I got introduced into training, the training ball game. Now, how did I get from the training to real estate? Nung bumalik ako sa Pilipinas, when I started looking for a job, I had already worked with Philippine Normal College, so hindi na ako bumalik doon. Pero the one that hired me was this guy, Gasti Ortigas of AIM. He was the dean of AIM at that time, and then he interviewed me, and then he hired me as a professor sa AIM. Pero puro head knowledge lang ako. Wala naman akong entrepreneurial experience. Wala akong hawak na kumpanya, na organization, whether profit or non-profit.
Yes.
So, napilitan ako na how do you do this business in real life? So that's when I started to to do private consulting, and that's where Think Rich Pinoy got born. And that's where the idea of how do you call that, foreclosures, no? Nabasa ko si Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I got enamored by Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then I kept asking, sinong gumagawa ng Rich Dad Poor Dad sa Pilipinas? Sabi nila sa akin, walang gumagawa niyan kasi para sa Amerika yan. Sabi ko, bakit? Yung principles are sound. They can apply to the US and they can apply to the Philippines. Yung the difference between assets and liabilities, etc. So ginawa ko, why don't I do it? They have foreclosed property. Bumili ako ng foreclosed property. Tapos I flipped it around and then I started to sell it wholesale and retail and all of those crazy options Rich Dad Poor Dad was showing us to do. Before I knew it, I had some properties, starting one small one, tapos naging mas malaki, from one condo, naging an apartment building, tapos dalawa ng condo, and then I ended up from condos to buildings. So I ended up getting control of some buildings and then running into the problem of how do you eject tenants, or how do you pay a big amortization bill pag may laki na yung utang mo, because your burn rate is really burning up your cash, and hindi pa tapos yung building, hindi you cannot still rent out the units. So anong mangyayari? You feel the pressure of having to cover overhead when you don't have any money to cover it with, except borrowed money, no?
Yes.
So that's where I got introduced into the hard knocks of real estate, by doing it, and then by writing about it, and then by sharing it through the Think Rich Pinoy seminar. That's how the Think Rich Pinoy Abundance seminar got started, Ronald. And that's where I met you, by the way. I was still moving from theory to practice, kasi the only way I could make sense out of all of this complex idea was through the game of Robert Kiyosaki, itong Cash Flow 101. Ang galing nun. And the one who really understood it and took the trouble and had the patience to answer my question was you. So somehow we linked up at that time, and I learned from you about Cash Flow 101. And then I kept saying, how do this, how do that? I just kept asking more and more questions, and you kept coming up with more and more answers that were very practical and understandable, no? Kasi sinisindak ako ng mga iba hindi ko naintindihan daw. I said, how can I understand? I don't really know how these numbers, this balance sheet, this income statement, how do you do this cash flow quadrant, yung ganun-ganun, no? So I had to really make sense of all of these things with your help, with the help of the cash flow board game, with the application of these principles in actual life situations of condominiums, apartment buildings, ejection of tenants, making contracts, and then coming up with partners that were not good partners, that were
Yes.
grabe, no? So I had to get the hard way. Walang overnight,
Shortcut.
walang shortcut. So that's a little bit of a feel of how I moved from training to education to coming back to the Philippines, trying to teach in AIM and being unhappy because nga wala akong actual business experience na ma-share sa mga students. And then I had to get the business experience which I was able to somehow, again, God's grace, put into print and came up with Think Rich Pinoy. And with the Think Rich Pinoy book, ano na, parang may direction na. There was some kind of, the dots got connected, moving
Yes.
backwards and forwards
Right.
with the Think Rich Pinoy Abundance Seminar and meeting people like you, and then later on, people like Randy Manaloto, and then later on, people like the Remax group, no?
Mhm.
Uh, that is really amazing how they're able to move real estate properties during this 10 months of pandemic, no?
Yeah.
These Rap Santos, Clem Dizon, and uh, si
And
yung
Rick
ikatlo,
Manzano.
si Rick Manzano, no?
Yep.
Talagang number one, number two, number three pa rin. Si Rap number one, si Rick si Clem number two, at ako si Rick number three.
Mhm.
Consistent ang mga sales nila using real estate. Pero sales na ito, sales,
Yes.
hindi yung model na buy and hold, hindi
Right.
yung rich dad poor dad model, yung think rich Pinoy model, hindi.
Right. Right. Pero
They're making money through commissions.
yes, and they're making big money. I interviewed
Very
them.
big.
Yeah, I just interviewed them. Well, I interviewed Clem last Wednesday, and Rick
Wow.
and Rap last week. So
Wow.
I just saw
Wow.
they're also there. They were awarded, right, by Remax.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. And I really want to hear their stories, frankly. Parang wala akong alam. So I would love to ask your permission to listen to your interview of Rap, of Rick, and of Clem.
Definitely, sir.
Tala-
I'll send you. I'll
Oh,
send you the links.
ayun. That will be a
Ah,
joy. I like to see
yes,
the success of people, you know, down the line. I mean, they are examples of that, no?
yes, yes.
So, and all of them were involved in, examen and entrepreneurship course na sinama ko doon sa Think Rich Pinoy Abundance Seminar.
Mhm.
So, naisingit yun with the help of Brother Mon Calio naman, who is
Okay.
now assigned to the Vatican. So, by the Salesian order. So, biski yung examen and entrepreneurship, nakakasingit sa Think Rich Pinoy.
Yeah. Well, that's really your DNA, sir. Di ba? Education is really uh,
Exactly. You got
in your
it.
blood. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Well,
that's that's true.
we have a couple of questions lang, sir, from our uh, constant viewer. This
Oh,
is, well, the title here is Paano the Tagalog How to Channel, but this is my friend Estelle,
mhm.
who is actually, I don't know if you know, I think she is the granddaughter of,
Hmm.
was it Senator Blas Ople? So
Wow. Okay.
I'm not sure if you met him, kasi you are connected to some, big names in politics and business leaders. So
Well,
uh,
because of the CD-ROM that I did for President Ramos,
mhm,
the Philippines means business. When the government was just entering into the digital age.
right.
So yun yung contribution ko sa government. And that's
Okay.
where the name Blas Ople crossed my screen through President Ramos.
All right. Well, this is Estelle's question, sir. How
Mhm.
much money do you recommend, for someone interested in investing in foreclosed properties or real estate?
There's no specific amount because the amount depends on the property that you want to target, that you see in the newspapers. There are foreclosed properties for sale by banks.
Yes.
Banks like, BDO, banks like Union Bank, banks like BPI, they're selling a whole list of foreclosed properties, and they sell it at a at book value, or a
Mhm.
certain amount above book value, and you only pay a certain percent of that. Can be 10%, can be 20%, and then the rest, the 80%, you pay over time. Could be 10 years, could be 5 years, could be a little bit longer or shorter. And that is what allows you to be creative about refurbishing it and then turning around and selling it,
Yes.
or turning around and renting it out. No? So some of my properties now, I'm still getting income through rent because it's been rent to own ang business model na ginamit ko sa umpisa. No?
Mhm.
They pay rent, but that rent is converted to equity, so that at the end of a certain period, if they faithfully pay, that equity allows them to own the property. And once fully paid, the title is now transferred to the person.
Yes.
So that's what Vic, my son, is has been working so diligently on for all these years. No? Yung
Yes.
mga
Yes.
properties na ganon. No? Mga rent-to-own properties.
Yeah. Now,
Whether condo or apartments or whatever.
yeah. Well, one of your, I think your first deal was the San Pedro, the 5 door San Pedro apartments, right?
Yes, which
Do you remember, sir? How much was that?
uh 170,000 pesos ang ano ko, ang
Down
tanda ko.
payment.
Pero yeah, it's really 1.7 million or something like
Mhm.
that. And I had to only pay 10% or 5%,
Yes.
which was 170,000. Now I was able to get control of it. And then in 30 days, I had to fix it up and then sell it on a rent to own basis. And
Yes.
I had to advertise through a Pascal and all the other means that we were taught by Robert Kiyosaki and
Yes.
his disciples. No? So talagang I just followed Robert Kiyosaki as much as I could and learned from the cash flow board game, and then learn from the students in the cash flow board game that were interested and were willing to take a chance on real estate investing at that time. No?
Mhm.
So those are very wild days,
Yes.
Ronald. Wild days.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Actually, I was talking earlier this morning with one of the guys, from that time. I don't know if you remember Ruski.
Ruski.
Yes, so one of the partners of John, Dr. John Nabaquin. They had,
Okay, okay,
yeah, they bought these, low cost housing in Batangas. I don't know if you
okay.
were a part of that, but he's in Canada now. He's a
Whoa.
real estate uh, broker there. He's been living there the past 5 years. But anyway,
Wait. Okay, okay.
I just suddenly was reminded of him because you were talking about the wild days in the past. Okay, so
Yes.
I hope that answers your question, Estelle. Estelle is one of our regular viewers, very diligent
Mm,
in watching and asking questions. She
that's
has
great.
another question. Is it
Uh-huh.
really possible to make money in real estate in 30 to 90 days with no money, no credit, and no prior experience in the Philippines?
I think that question should be addressed to Ronald Kagape. Ronald
Ayun.
is the one who is helping a lot of people do these crazy no money down deals.
All right.
So Ronald will show you his formula and his book, and then he will prove to you through the numbers how you can do it. You just make sure you follow all of his steps so that you can test it yourself and find out is it really true.
All
And
right.
if you follow it correctly, you will find out it is really possible. But you have to get the right deal. The
Yes.
numbers have to line up according to what Ronald shows you. So critical yon. Critical yon. That's why in the book of Ronald, I would recommend no money down real estate. Grabe.
Awesome.
Tinalo niya
Thank you.
si Kiyosaki. Oh,
Di naman siguro, sir. Pero, well, we're talking about the Philippine setting. So,
okay,
anyway, that's
okay.
good. Ayan, ayan. And, but I guess to answer the question, that you can really find the answer in that book, No Money Down Formula. Of course, there are qualifiers, like Sir Larry said. It has to be the right property with the right price, right terms, in the right market. So there are a lot of things that have to line up. But because you mentioned no money, no credit, and no prior experience, of course, that's very difficult, to do that alone, on your own. Especially if you don't have experience, that is very, very difficult to do. It's not impossible, like what Sir Larry has been talking about. If you've been listening in the previous parts of the video, or this interview, Sir Larry really went into things not knowing how things were done. Right, he just learned along the way. So whether it was, teaching statistics, no prior experience teaching statistics, no prior experience, studying business administration or even running a business, but no, you're just able to figure it out. And yun lang, what Dr. Lara showed us is that, really anything is possible if you're willing to study, to dig through things, figure things out, and solve problems. Ayan. Let's move on. We have a couple of questions here. You're very popular, sir. How much capital did you start with now, sir?
How much capital?
I
Enough
think.
to get control of that San Pedro property,
Yes,
where
yes.
essentially it was really like 170,000. I had to put that together in like 30 to 60 days and renovate and use the time, whatever time I could borrow, to be able to generate cash flow so
Yes,
that I do not get overwhelmed by the loan. No?
yes, yes.
So a lot of fancy footwork, but I did not use, I mean, I tried to keep within that budget of almost 200,000 pesos to play around with until I could get those 5 units rented out on a rent to
Right,
own basis. Ayun.
right. All right. We still have, let's see, next question from Nico Yeo. Hi, Sir Larry. What would your advice be for a 17-year-old kid, interesting, trying to jump into his first deal, who has the capital but cannot do bank financing due to lack of income and no credit history? Interesting
How,
question.
how did you get the capital?
Oh,
You must have generated it, either binigay sa'yo, minana sa'yo, or you're an entrepreneur and you know how to generate capital doing side hustle. For example, I understand one of the sons of one of my mastermind, Arthur Ginda, he comes up with 1 minute videos. 1 minute videos. 1 minute videos. The doggone guy has gone viral with this
mhm.
1 minute videos. And now his dad says, son, you are making more money than me. And I'm supposed to be a big class executive in Robinson's, in the real estate arm of Robinson's. But
Mhm.
you're making more money than me because of this 1 minute videos you're generating, no?
Yes.
So is that how you got your capital? You get this 1 minute video income and you're
No,
doing
sir.
your passion, inheritance.
Inheritance. Yes, sir.
Uh, then alagaan mo yung inheritance na yon. Figure out how to multiply it steadily, carefully. Consider learning about the local stock market through Bo Sanchez and the Truly Rich Club. And then later on, through the global stock market, kung talagang gusto mong lumaban doon, despite volatility that's going on right now. Kasi we also had, at least I also had very good experience with Ronald on the global stock market through TRP gains, no? Global Asset Investment Strategy. Uh, we created a seminar called TRP Gains to help local Filipinos invest in the global stock market, believe it or not. And we did it right during the pandemic, nung talagang everything was going haywire in the Philippines. Ang sagot namin is, o di huwag ka lumaban sa Pilipinas, lumaban ka doon sa Amerika. Kasi if you're able to get the right stocks and you diversify and that these stocks are well chosen, the losses and the gains will slowly offset each other, and then you will grow your portfolio safely until you might want to liquidate some of them and use it to enter into real estate or
All right.
invest in real estate like the REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust of the Ayalas, no? So you have to learn a little bit more about not only the local market, later on the global market, and then you have to connect your knowledge with the local and the global with your business niche, you know. My niche is education. Basta makatulong ako sa education, happy na ako, no? Yung iba, like the niche of Bo Sanchez and Edward Lee, is the local stock market. Doon sila talagang, they're trying to focus on that, no? And then the niche, for example, of Pax Lapid is he's got his own lead more. Alam mo naman si Pax, he loves to support entrepreneurs who are struggling with their entrepreneurial business, no? And may ed siya. He is buddies with the Secretary of Trade, si Ramon. Ang pangalan niya?
Secretary of Trade. Was that Ramon Del
Secretary,
Rosario?
no. Ramon, not Ramon Del Rosario. Ramon Del Rosario was Secretary of Finance, and then he got turned down. They didn't want to allow him to be appointed Secretary of Trade.
Ramon Lopez.
Ramon Lopez, that's the right guy. Very close si Pax Lapid kay Mon Lopez. So alam na alam niya yung mga support ng gobyerno sa mga small and medium enterprise.
Okay.
So if you want a loan from them, then you have to show your business is going to help turn the economy around, and then they will loan you money, 3 million to 5 million. Kung meron kang business model na you can show is promising.
So yun, maybe just to add to your question, Miko, Dr. Larry mentioned that be careful with the inheritance, right? Don't. I would recommend you don't put it all in one deal, because if that deal goes south, then you lose everything. Diba? So you be conservative. Learn to create a business first that gives you cash flow, and then that when you create a business that gives you cash flow, that addresses your lack of income problem and your no credit history problem. So there are many ways. There are many ways to, I guess, to address this. But like what Dr. Larry said, you take care of it. Don't blow it all on one deal. Be a little bit conservative and continue learning. You're still young. You have a lot of time. At 17 years old, you still have a lot of years ahead of you. And we have
invest in education. Invest
Yo.
in education. So yun, you get to invest in Truly Rich Club of Bo Sanchez, in the book of No Money Down Deals of of Ronald, no? So so many good education courses that you can check out, see which one resonates with you, no?
Mhm.
Uh, Me, what resonated with me was the product launch formula of Jeff Walker. So I re-enrolled because I paid what $2,000 mga 10 years ago. But every year he asks you to join by paying only 10% of that. That's $200. And then I get the complete product launch formula sequence courses online, no? And mga case study of different people in different niches who are making money online, starting an online business.
Yes.
Yun ang ano ngayon all of these businesses that are either they start online or they pivoted their old business model. Now they're going online, no?
Yep.
Gcash, for example, or Paymaya. These are all new
Yes.
entries into the business. Just making payment easier and easier. They're already making money in
Mhm.
Gcash and in Paymaya and all of this delivery like Lalamove and all of this stuff. The all because of the software online.
Right. Right.
So
Well, it's amazing, sir, that you really are, no, as I guess, a scholar or a student, a lifelong student at heart. Was starting with you're always, studying whatever is, I guess, the trend or the leading ideas at that time. What you mentioned earlier in your career, you were studying organizational development and all of these ideas by Peter Drucker. Then later on, when Rich Dad opened up the idea for real estate investing, you went there, you studied, and up to now, no, you're still studying. Never, I guess, never tired of studying the online world.
yeah, because that's where the excitement is. My latest is this guy Hans Rosling, How I Learned to Understand the World, a memoir by Hans Rosling. This guy is a genius. He wrote a book called Factfulness, and
Mhm.
that is highly recommended by Bill Gates. And Bill Gates not only recommends Hans Rosling, but Bill Gates recently wrote a book himself. Bill Gates, who predicted the pandemic 10 years ago
Mhm.
before it hit us, he is now saying the pandemic is a good practice experience for a bigger challenge that we will all be facing and we are all facing, which is climate change.
Mhm.
So, how to prevent climate disaster is the title of Bill Gates' new book. So, I'm trying to look for a copy to try to buy one. Meanwhile,
Mhm.
my daughter helped me download the the audio version of it, and I've been listening to it. And he recommends Hans Rosling and the book Factfulness by Hans Rosling as a basis for reading his book How to Prevent Climate Disaster.
Okay.
That's the biggest challenge we will be facing as a species in the next 30 years. How to prevent climate disaster.
Okay.
And the secret is innovation. Yun ang sinasabi
Right.
ni Ronald. Innovation. The innovation, we have to unleash that. And we have to learn to work together across borders and across cultures. How to do that? That is a human challenge to get the Americans and the Chinese and the Europeans and all of these people working together to not only make the rich people richer, but the poor people have to go through what Hans Rosling shows the trajectory of growth
Mhm.
as a country. So he can be seen in TED, Hans Rosling in TED, and I know he has passed away, but these two books are invaluable legacies. No?
Mhm.
So how I learned to understand the world. So
All
I'm
right.
really reading and rereading this, and then the book Factfulness by Hans Rosling and his son and the son's wife, Anna
All right.
Rosling Rosmond.
All right. Well, those are. Thank you for those book recommendations, sir. We still have
You're
one more
welcome.
question before we, I guess, before we end. And from Subasta Herong Trader, interesting name. Pwede po ba mag-loan sa bank para bayaran ng full payment yung nakuhang property sa pag-ibig? And I think parang loan takeout to. No?
Oh, loan na yung pag-ibig eh. You are able to buy the property using a pag-ibig loan, which is the most reasonable loan you can get. I think that's 30 years. It can go as long as
Yes.
30 years, and the monthly is very, very small. No?
Mhm.
So, with a pag-ibig loan, very, very reasonable rate over a stretched period of time, why will you go to a bank who will charge you a higher rate so that you will pay off the pag-ibig loan and you will have a harder time paying the bank, no?
Yes.
So, easy lang. You should feel blessed na you got the pag-ibig loan. Your challenge is how to make sure you can pay, fully pay that pag-ibig loan until you can, turn around and buy a bigger property with
Yes.
another loan. But if you make a loan like pag-ibig, which is good, and then you make a bigger loan that is bad, you're going to hurt yourself. So dahan-dahan lang. This is where, we get into Bitcoin and all of these wild ways of making money. And people end up getting broke. Huh?
Mhm.
Bitcoin is so, how do you call it? Talagang na-excite ang mga tao eh. And people are so excited about spending money.
Mhm.
They don't know how to control the gambling urge,
Right.
Ang ginagawa nung sa mastermind ko, magagamble sila pero they only gamble siguro 3% or 5% of their resources. 95% they're carefully uh, making sure they're able to grow it carefully.
Mhm.
Pero yung para ma-satisfy yung gambling streak, o sige ito, 5%. Itaya mo yan, you can lose it all, you lose 5%, okay lang, no? But you control your loss, no? But if you make at the 5%, you have a little bit more money to gamble, no? But
Yes.
do you have the discipline to not go wild? Yun ang problema. That the market right now is in such a state na people are talagang gigil na gigil, no? That's why Bo Sanchez has to be listened to, and
Mhm.
Edward Lee and the Truly Rich Club, no? And listen to what they are saying about the marketplace and how you will handle wild things like Bitcoin and all that. How do you handle it properly? How do you get educated so
Mhm.
that you can evaluate these deals, no, when they come across you?
All right. All right. And what Sir Larry mentioned earlier, no, you just risk a small portion. That also answers your question, Miko. But you have your inheritance. So like I said earlier, don't put all of that in one deal. Just risk a small portion of it para you don't lose everything. And you take care of it. And okay. I guess we're already past 1 hour. But the good thing with the internet, no, you can go over time, not like network TV, where you get cut off. You get cut off in the
Okay.
middle. And Yeah, I think this is a welcome break for Dr. Larry, from Netflix. You can continue the Netflix naman later, sir, di ba?
All right. In the Line of Fire, Clint Eastwood. I also am open to any good shows na I love good shows like Chariots of Fire.
Mhm.
Sabi ko sa anak ko, i-download muli yung Chariots of Fire. I need the encouragement of that movie. It's about
Okay.
sports, it's about competition, and yung pang ginamit ni Mr. Bean sa opening segment ng London Olympics. Si
Mhm.
Mr. Bean with the orchestra behind him, he was showing himself running in that race. So sabi ko, I have to watch that movie again
Okay.
para masaya ng konti during this pandemic. Kasi
Yes, yes.
the variant is really, really going to try to drag us down.
Right, right.
So maraming tao natetepok sa variant.
Yes, yes.
So be careful
Yeah,
with that.
correct.
And I have to control myself. I have to ask, sino bang sino bang na-inectionan na? No? Like Clem,
Mhm.
Clem Dizon. When I talk to him, I'm going to have a question to ask him about the South African variant. So,
Okay.
tingnan natin anong sagot ni Clem doon. And that will
Sige.
affect us here.
All right. Well, may follow-up dun sa question, sir. Bale,
Hmm.
apparently, um, si Subasta Herong Trader, sabi niya, bale kasi po, client ko po yung mag-undergo ng bank loan para makuha po yung property ko. Ayan. So he is selling the property pala. The property
Uh,
that he owns is under pag-ibig, and then someone is buying it, and they're buying it using a security bank financing. So yes, yun, pwede yun.
hmm. Wish you well.
Okay.
Wish you well.
All right. Well, before we end with our last, I guess my final question to Sir Larry, and since Estelle said it's this a great episode as always, thank you, Estelle. For if you like this episode, and if you like this interview with Dr. Larry Gamboa, please make sure to smash the like button on the for in this video. That helps the YouTube algorithm. Share this video to more people. If you think that there are specific people, specific friends in your life that would benefit from hearing this video, feel free to share with them also. And if you are watching on the replay, you can comment down your questions and maybe we can address that in a future episode or future interview again with Dr. Larry. Ayan. Thank you, Estelle. Or Hannibal Everfresh de Malanta. Very interesting name, Everfresh. And
Ever
thank you,
fresh.
Sir Larry. I'm in real estate because of you and your books since 2006. And you have a fan here, sir.
Okay, Hannibal.
Okay, so with that, sir, I just have one final question because this was something that um, while listening to you, you mentioned a lot of people that had a great impact or at least had no contributions in your life. So how important are these relationships and in our success, and how did you, I guess, how did these factor into your success, sir?
They're crucial. Crucial. Relationships are the key. You have to learn to build relationships, grow relationship, work your way through conflict in relationships so that it's a treasure that is invaluable. No? We call it mastermind group. No? If you can find yourself a mastermind group, it could be a mastermind of one person or two persons, or sometimes a little bit more, maybe 6 to 10. But this mastermind group are people who are better than you, who you respect, and somehow you have gained their respect. And again, you're able to trust one another with your deepest secrets and fears, and you're able to support one another honestly, openly, sometimes painfully, and still keep your relationship intact. That's gold. That is valuable gold. Uh, and that's what kept me alive all throughout my days from high school with these classmates of mine, all the way through college, all the way through graduate school, all the way through abroad and here in the Philippines. God has blessed me with people, some of whom I never would have known or chosen, but He put them across my path. I mean, an example is Ronald, no? Ang tagal na namin magkasama ni Ronald. And many times, his thinking and my thinking are not exactly the same. Pero, tuloy, somehow God has allowed us to continue to connect with each other, no? So when Ronald said, gusto niyang i-build up yung channel niya, sabi ko, count me in. Uh, Anything to support Ronald's own passion, no? Kasi Ronald has a gift, and it's a matter of allowing that gift to continue to flower and to flourish, no? And already some of you have experienced the gift of Ronald, no? But that's all because of relationship, guys. You will not be able to function as a it's a myth that you can a Lone Ranger myth that you're riding your horse and you're uh, the great hero, captain of your soul and captain of your. You're not, no. You're only as good as the team. Bo Sanchez is able to be Bo Sanchez because of the team around him.
Mhm.
Edward Lee is Edward Lee because of the team around him. And one of the most critical members of the team is the familia, the
Mhm.
the the wife, the friend, the business partner. Many times, talagang uh, when you know you're down on yourself, it's the team that kind of pushes you forward. Uh, Ako, paisi-isi na ako. And then, this guy Ronald says, can you be interviewed? Anak ng pating. Pa-relax na ako. Pero gusto pa rin niya mag-interview. Sabi ko, laban. No? Laban. Sabi ko, he must have some purpose. Kung makatulong ako, okay lang. Pero, totoo yun. Pa-relax na ako. Ngayon, babalik ako sa
Sa Netflix.
in the line of fire ni
All
Clint
right.
Eastwood. Clint
All
Eastwood.
right, sir. Sige,
Okay,
sir.
Ronald.
I will let you go back to your to your Netflix movie.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you,
Thank
Sir
you,
Larry.
guys. Yes, hope
All right.
you're able to be of service. Thank the
Yes.
Lord, Ronald. Thank the
Yes.
Lord for this time together.
All right, so let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for giving us the blessing of Sir Larry's presence. Please continue to give him good health, strengthen his body, let him recover from his recent surgery, restore the strength in his arms, and the strength in his heart and mind, so that he may continue to inspire more people to make better decisions with their finances. All of this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All
Amen.
right. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. And
Okay, Ronald.
to all of you who joined us, in this episode, thank you very much, for staying with us, even if we went over time. But I hope that if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, please make sure to hit the like button again and subscribe to the channel to be notified of future interviews, interesting interviews like this, and other videos that I release on this channel. And always remember, it's always a great day to make deals, and I hope that all of your deals will push through. See you on our next video.